Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to another Tuesday Live podcast with your host, Joe and Jen. I am Joe.
And I'm Jen, and we are so excited to come live today and talk about a seller finance deal breakdown, where if you're listening live, you get to ask questions along the way.
Yay. So we're going to go over a breakdown. And guys, I'm going to tell you, you need to listen to this whole thing because as we go deeper into this, the nuggets are going to get even bigger. Okay. And we're going to drop the whole deal from front to back. Okay. And I think the key to success is having a strategy that's simple. Right. And when I'm looking at what they call creative finance, that sounds big. It sounds scary. There's a lot of things going on. But what does that mean? It's a big umbrella. And it's basically, if you go down to the very basic things, I am buying something from somebody, and I'm most likely going to make that into payments over some time. Now,
wow, you make it sound so simple.
Well, we want to make it sound complicated. And it's really not. I mean, farmers were buying the neighbor's land and trading chickens and crops, right? And long before, all types of things, guys.
Yeah.
And bartering. So
and you guys are in for a special treat because we're actually going to be sharing the recent anniversary that we just had.
Yay. We're going to do this with everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to go there. All right. Perfect. So first of all, when we're going to go over this, I'm taking these off. So when we're going to go over it, this is an anniversary of our very first creative finance deal. When we did our very first deal, we were getting capped out by the bank. The bank says, Joe, Jen, at 10 mortgages, we're going to cut you off. And we knew we wanted more than just 10 properties. So this
did. I thought you were crazy. I didn't know where you were going with this, but
well, a little bit of both.
Yep.
But what we learned was the summer of 2016, this is where I learned this concept. And we went really deep down the rabbit hole of every date night, every time I was in the shower, anywhere that I was in my car, I always had this playing in the background. Everybody goes into that YouTube university. And I found out two things. Like one, this is definitely what I want to do. Two, we need some help. And one of the first key things was we hired a coach that helped us do this. And this is how we found our very first creative finance deal. And I love this one because it was so simple. And I think that deal, the first one being simple, really kind of proved the concept that this works. And it was an amazing deal in the same part. So what we did was our coach advised us, Joe, you need to get in front of sellers. You need to get leads. And what did I just share on my Facebook this morning?
I don't know. I don't know if I've had a chance to check, quite honestly. I've been dizzy all morning.
I didn't even share it yet, but it's hard to be poor.
Oh, you shared it with me.
It's hard to be poor with leads pounding down your door. So what we did was we spent money on direct mail. We found a list of homeowners who had a second house. And because the tax bill was getting mailed somewhere else, we did direct mail to these folks. And a lot of them didn't respond to our mail. We did get some back, right? And some of them had a house that they did want to sell. And the seller who reached out to us, this was the spring of 2017. This was, I mean, you're talking 7 years right now when we made that deal. And his name was Steve. What was Steve's story?
Steve was an accidental landlord. So what that means was that he had inherited his grandfather's home, and in the meantime, he had his own home about an hour away. He lived with his family in, and so he didn't quite know what to do with the property that, carried a lot of memories, because we did actually meet Steve at the property. And so in the meantime, he was renting it out to his friend, but he wasn't making any money. He didn't necessarily want to be a landlord, but he just didn't really know what else to do. So his buddy was living there for, I think, a couple $100 a month.
Yeah, it was like almost free how much he was living there. And Steve still had to pay for the taxes.
The insurance, the upkeep, maintenance, lawn mowing, and then anything that were going to happen to it, he'd have to repair it. And so when he received our letter, to him, it was really kind of like a little blessing. And he was like, I do want to sell it, but I don't want to go through the hassle of getting it ready to list. I don't want a bunch of people in here. There's a lot of memories I have. And so, he really looked at this opportunity as, being super grateful for it.
Well, and that's what gave him the idea to reach out, right? And he had friends renting. It was actually a coworker who was renting the house out. And he didn't want all these people walking through his grandfather's home is how he saw it. And when we did the walkthrough, he showed us where they had Thanksgiving dinner. And this is where this happened. So you could see when he walked through, he had a lot of pride in the property. And the number one reason why we were able to talk to him and make that deal was the old Jenn and Joe. Before we knew this, we were just looking for distressed properties, the properties that needed a lot of work that we were able to get for big discounts. His whole thing was, he's like, I don't want a lowball offer.
Mm-hmm.
And this house doesn't really need any work. I've always done all the upkeep myself. He was like, it was a hassle having to drive an hour there anytime this faucet went or this went. He's like, but I stayed on top of all of it. So I don't want a low offer, and this isn't some junker. And this was the first property that we looked at because Jen was used to going through some like nasty houses.
I was like walking in and walking right back out. But this one I didn't mind. I stuck around for a little while.
Yeah. So when we did that walkthrough, we figured out what he wanted for the house. And what he wanted for the house was pretty close to retail, right? And pretty close to retail, we still got a good deal on it. But it wasn't some like half off junker. He wanted pretty close to retail. I think at the time we figured out it was worth about $100,000. He asked 80 grand for it. Now this was a house out in the suburbs. This is why we started in upstate New York. Houses were pretty affordable.
Mm-hmm.
But when we bought that deal, we agreed to doing seller financing, which all of that meant was we're going to buy it. We're going to take ownership of it. And instead of going to get a loan out with Bank of America or Chase Bank or any other bank, we're going to turn and pay Bank of Steve, the seller. And I told him just like that. So we're going to pay Bank of Steve every month. And he says, well, what happens about the taxes? I said, we pay that because we own it. He says, well, whose insurance is it going to be under? Well, that's our insurance because we own the property. He says, so wait a minute. I sell the property to you, and you're just going to pay me payments every month, and you take care of the taxes, you take care of the insurance. Well, what happens if you rent it out and there's a plugged toilet? Do you call me? I said, no, because we own the house. So we take care of all the maintenance. We take care of all of the repairs because it's our house. We own it. We're just paying you every month in monthly payments just until we get it cashed out later on. It was that simple. What a couple of the things that we negotiated were that really made the deal great. We told Steve, we typically buy with no money down, okay? You remember what he said?
Okay.
He said, okay. All right. So I said, great. We figured out what the payment was. And he says, Joe, I'm collecting, I think about $400 or $500 right now a month. Is it going to be around there? I said, yes, it would be. We pay you about $500 a month. Because on top of that, we have to pay taxes and insurance. He said, that's fine. Right. So we agreed to this $80,000 price. We paid to this $500 payment. I believe with taxes and insurance, our payment was a little under $800 a month all in. And we rented that for $1,250 a month. Was that the number? Or was it $1,200?
I mean, we're talking, I used to write checks back then. So like, I can't exactly remember. What is around there? 12 or 1250? One
of the two. So we were, and this was in the beginning, obviously that rent changed, but we were paying Steve every single month, paying him his payment, socking extra money away for the taxes, the insurance. And that was our very first seller finance deal. Now, what we agreed on was that $500 a month is going to go towards what I owe you every month. So what did we do? We got a 0% mortgage because he said, that's fine. So $500 a month, 12 payments a year, right? If you do that math, every single year, we're paying $6,000 off our principal. So if I bought it at $80,000 and we did give him $100 down and $6,000 is coming off principal every year, you can see how quickly you could turn into a really, really nice deal, even paying top dollar. Now, the fun thing about what we love, when we did that very first deal, we closed on it. We put $100 down, so it's not all just $100. I just want to make that well aware. You see these advertisements, buy a house with $100. Well, it's $100 down, plus you got to pay closing costs. We paid both sides of closing costs.
Yeah, and so it's $100 down to the seller. Like, there's a lot of deals that turn into not deals because the seller wants so much money down. So the money down is usually to the seller that we're talking about. But yes, you do need to come up with closing costs and insurance.
Insurance policy, closing costs. Now, on that property, I think we had, like, there was the renter who lived there left like a couple of couches behind. So we had to have Kevin come over and drag all that stuff out of the house.
Big TV, I remember.
There was a humongous TV.
And the garbage wouldn't come take it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, remember that?
Yeah, I do, because I kept getting the calls.
Yay. So that's what happened with that property.
Yeah.
So once we did that very first deal, the flip side of where we found to make this process even better, we found a way to supercharge our investment. And that's when we implemented rent to own. Because what we did with rent to own, our renter moved in and they gave us $10,000 to move in.
Mm-hmm.
They paid that $1,200 or $1,250 a month rent. Plus, we gave them a turnkey house that didn't need any work. But with our renters, they're responsible for all the maintenance and repairs. So we found 3 different ways to get paid on one property. That big chunk of money when they come to move in, because obviously we were probably up a few $1,000s at that point. We've got no credit tied into it. We're making cash flow of about $400, $450 a month. And that's straight cash flow. And so we get that check up front, like almost like I wholesale the deal or did whatever. I get monthly cash flow every month like a landlord, but without the calls and the maintenance and all of these things. And then once your renters do buy it out down the road with rent to own, you get the big back end check. That's like if you flipped a house, the only difference is you're selling it directly to your renter. So there's no 6% commission and things like that. So you could actually put more money in your pocket and help somebody turn from a renter to a homeowner. And I will tell you, once you could do that and you could change somebody's life and turn a renter who was great at one point but had something happen and they just need that opportunity, but now they're on the way to greatness again, and you could put them in a nice house, a nice neighborhood. It's pretty awesome. So that's when we found that method to work really well. So with our very first seller finance deal, that's what we did, guys.
And I think it's really important to point out too that he wasn't like a distressed seller. It wasn't a distressed property. He wasn't behind on anything, but it was wonderful that he received a letter and that he would just be open to hear how we could help him out with really a seamless transaction. Is kind of really looking back, what he wanted most was not to disturb and change his grandfather's house, because it was turnkey, but it was not like the Joanna Gaines kitchen, if you recall.
No, it was dated.
Yeah.
But it was clean.
Oh, yeah. It had great bones, but I could see where if it was a sentimental, people are very attached to homes and emotional connections and where they had Thanksgiving and all of that. And so you could see like that, I remember being a turning point for me, because when you can make this business about people and not about, just, making money and, the deal, the number, the door, right? Like you're actually in somebody's kitchen or his old grandfather's kitchen, I guess, and having that conversation. And now we can have the conversations over the phone or over Zoom or what have you. But, again, it's a people business. And when you get to the heart of people, of how you can truly help them, that's when it changed for me. And I have to admit that, like being in that kitchen really was a pivotal moment looking back.
Well, and I think, you could see the pride in his eyes when he's talking about the property. And part of being a real estate investor or just doing deals is you have to have the ability to really want to help people in all different situations. And that's just one situation of maybe why the seller didn't want to put it on the market, right? Would want to do something direct to seller off market. And then why would they even do this? Like, I know what some of you are thinking is, why would a seller even do that, right? And the reason why we love what we call creative finance, which is just buying real estate without using banks in other ways, it's even better. But if you're able to pay the seller their price and they walk away feeling great because they got their price, but we're walking away because, yeah, I did pay the price, but we got some great terms, and we could all walk away feeling great about the deal and not feeling icky or feel like, oh, somebody got one over on the other one, where it can really work great for both sides. That's really the key to why we love to do this, right? And doing these seller finance deals this way. So I think that's been really huge, because there's so many times where we're talking to a seller and they want a cash offer and that number is just so low, they don't love it. They get offended, right? They do get all upset about the deal. So I think that's really the key too.
Well, I think too, kudos to you for not offering him like $10,000 down, because I think, again, people get nervous. They kind of insert foot in mouth, and next thing you know, like the deal's not really a great deal because the cost of entry gets high. But he didn't need the money. Like that was never an issue. Now, sometimes sellers do need money, and that's a different conversation. But in this particular case, you textbook seller finance deal.
Well, I said I typically buy with no money down, and I've heard so many, I can't say whatever, but like people will be like, hey, I made an offer. And I said, what if I give you $50,000 down? Or what if I give you $25,000 down? And I'm like, well, geez, just you're telling them what you're willing to do, right? Like just ask a couple questions and have the seller make you the offer. It's so much better that way. And you're really going to find out what the seller's wanting. And if we agree to that, then that's a great thing for everybody. So I think that's key. And when you're listening to a seller's situation, it's like, what's their situation and what's their why? Right. And that's got to be, you got to understand what the root of the problem is. What's their why? What's their desire? And I'll go over a situation today. I just got on a phone call 20 minutes before we went live on our podcast. We have a new deal today. But this is a seller who, husband and wife, they've been divorced for 19 years. She is sick of his stuff. He is sick of her stuff. And so they've had this property that they've owned. And this is the last piece of something keeping these two connected.
For 19 years.
Besides their son.
Oh.
And their son, they're adults. I mean, the sons are adults, right? So this is the last piece of anything keeping them connected. And they've got this property. And neither one of them been to the property in like forever. Mm. She hasn't seen it in like 19 years. He was there just to do a drive-by, take some pictures, but he's like, I haven't been here in a few years myself. So they want to sell the property, but they're still fighting with each other. 19 years later, you think you'd either settle it or just go completely opposite, but they couldn't. So part of this deal was being almost like a marriage counselor.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to her and I'm explaining how this is a good thing for her. Then I'm explaining how it's a good thing for him.
On separate phone calls.
Separate phone calls.
You're not doing any three-way phone
No,
calls.
these two cannot be on the same phone call together. Both
Thank
wonderful.
goodness for mobile notaries.
Both wonderful people.
Yeah.
And both are great to me and fantastic to me. So when he says something about her, I'm like, hey, listen, like I get you guys have history, but she's been wonderful to me. And when she has a little dig about him, I'm like, hey, once again, I know you two have a history, but
right. You're just trying to solve the problem of getting this house and the final thing away from the two of them.
So here's where it comes into play. They legitimately are like, hey, listen, like if we don't sell it, I'm just going to stop paying for it and we'll have the bank get the house back. I'm like, guys, that will do nothing to help either one of you.
Sounds like a terrible idea.
Right? I was like, this way you're going to be able to solve this now, get it over with now, and both walk away with some cash. And like, I was like, the prices of everything these days, who couldn't use a little extra cash in their mailbox? And they both were like, you know what? That's a great point. And I was like, and don't you think the banks make out enough by taking back this property and then reselling it for more money? They're only the ones going to make out. And you two lose over the sake of each other. I was like, wouldn't you just love to get this problem solved, get this done and make some money? And they're both like, you know what, Joe? Yes. So sometimes you just have to help them make sense of what's going on. And sometimes being the outsider looking in, you could kind of help these people and they don't know. And these folks are probably my parents' age. And I'm trying to be like the one like, hey, let's get this over with now. And now they're both good. And even before she's like, hey, he called me and says now he doesn't want to do the deal. I called him. I'm like, hey, is everything okay? He's like, no, I was just messing with her. And I was like, well, stop doing that. Right? Because now you got her all nervous.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
So exciting things, but it's always something going on with real estate, but you're trying to help people's problems. And so when you're wholesaling and you're getting those low cash offers, that's great. But there's so many people out there who have turnkey houses and they just don't know what to do with them, right? Some markets they're putting on the market and they're not selling. Some don't even want to put it on the market. And I think that's been a real big thing that we see a lot.
Yeah. Somebody saying on Instagram, nice work. Sounds like a sticky situation to navigate.
You know what? It can be a little sticky, but I don't know. I think if you've been doing this long enough, just meeting people at the ground level of where they're at and what they're trying to do and trying to see if you could help them. And the more you can make sense of it and just be a regular person.
Well, I think it's more than just regular. Like you go out on a limb, like you always come up from a place of compassion. You're never combative. I don't think I've ever heard you combative, even with like a super grumpy seller that might be like trying to do some weird things.
I killed them with extra kindness. You want to be grumpy? Well, good. I'm going to be your ray of sunshine that day.
Yeah. I want to circle back to Steve's deal real quick. Like, how did you come up with the $500 a month payment? Because I think that might be a good thing to go over when people are negotiating. So if it doesn't have a mortgage, which is pretty black and white, right? Like whatever the payment is, you just take over making that payment on the seller's behalf, log into the portal, make the payment, what have you. But Steve was the bank.
So how did we come up with that payment?
Yeah.
I am glad that you brought that up. That is a great question.
That's what I'm here for, breaking it down.
So here's what I did to figure out what can I afford to pay Steve. because that's important. Because if I told Steve I'll pay anything, he would just want to take it. But what I found out was I went on Zillow and I saw what properties were renting for in that area, comparable single family homes. I also looked at apartment complexes in that area and saw what those rented for. So how much is an apartment complex rent for? Well, back then they were about $1,000 a month, $900 a month. If you got like the 2-bedroom-ish, whatever. But this is a 3-bedroom house with a garage. So I knew $1,250 was going to be fairly easy. And I saw other houses renting for about that. Now, if this was like a super modern kitchen and a super modern bathroom, we could have got more. But it was a clean house. But just like I said, it was a little bit dated.
Did have a nice yard, though.
Yeah. Garage, yard, basement. So it was a decent house. So with $1,250, I knew people, when they're going to rent, they're going to be one of two things. They're always a payment, right? Or when I'm doing even rent to own, the price is important, but most important is, can I afford the monthly payment? So I knew at $1,250, I would have a good amount of traction, getting a lot of people interested in the property, finding the right one who's got the 10, 20 grand down. And that's what we were going to do. So when I figured out my payment had to be around that $1,250 a month, I backed into how much profit does Joe and Jen want to make? Well, I ideally want to make around $500 a door clear at the end of the month. Clear, right? So now I'm back into, well, what's my insurance policy going to cost me? What are the taxes going to be on the property? And then how much leftover can I pay the seller? Now, here's the challenge with this that you want to not get caught. I don't see nobody talking about this. So I'm going to share a ninja next level secret that shouldn't be that much of a secret. If you're doing this, you should openly know about this and not get caught in the trap that so many people do when they try to do these deals. Steve had got that property inherited from his grandfather long before that. I don't know at what value, but I think the town had it assessed at like half the value of what we were going to buy it for. Mm. So when I look at what the taxes are at that current value or valuation, that's important. But every time you're going to buy one of these properties, what you need to do is you need to call the tax assessor's office. My name is Joe Delafave. I'm planning on buying address 248, whatever it was, address road. If I buy it at this price, what will my taxes go to, right? If it's assessed, reassessed, how often does this happen? And then number two, if you live in the house, you get, in almost every state, you get a homestead advantage discount. In New York, they call it the star discount, which every year it knocks off about $700-800 off of your property taxes as a discount because it's your home.
That's it.
Yeah, it's not a lot. Hey, it's better than not. $700 swing though, right?
Yeah, no, I know. It's silly.
But if you're going to use that as a rental, you don't get that discount. So it's important to call and say, hey, my name is Joe. I'm not use your name though. I'm buying this property at this price. I'm going to turn it into a rental. So if I don't have the homestead discount and I'm going to turn it into rental and I buy at that price, what will my taxes go to per year? And then when will that go into effect? Because I don't know if you remember, we were on, I forgot the guy's podcast. We were on some guy's podcast like 4 years ago. And he said how he bought 5 properties in South Carolina. He's like, I bought them, boom, 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 boom. And he thought he was making a few $100 a door. And then the towns went in and reassessed it. And then he also lost the homestead discount. And he went from cash flowing, which he thought was a few hundred per door. He was losing a few hundred per door, like that. So you really want to do your due diligence. So what I did was I called the town, found out what it was going to get assessed for. When will that go into effect? It's going to be a rental. We got the rental permit, so it could be a legit rental because you got to put smoke alarms and all that, or fanatics. And so once we found out, we could pay Steve $500 a month. That was the number. Mm-hmm. So long story short, find out what all your expenses are, build in your 500, 600 profit or whatever you want it to be, and then tell the seller that's what the payment can be.
Yeah, and I think the other, leverage there that you really are able to pull is that we are responsible for all maintenance, all repairs, taxes, and insurance. Now, that said, with the rent-to-own program, tenant buyers are responsible for maintenance and repairs, but at the same time, you want to use that because otherwise, I know a lot of times sellers will just want to try to get their payment as high as possible. But, we're in a business to make money too. It's not a nonprofit. So it is really important to really know your numbers well. And the only way you get good at that is practice, practice, practice.
Well, and I think that's the key is, yeah, we do pass that on. But how many times is one of our renters say, Joe, Jen, like, oh, it's 3 weeks before Christmas. and we know that we have to pay for it, but our hot water tank just died, and we're not going to be able to have Christmas if we have to pay for this hot water tank, and we just do it. We do it ourselves, or we don't do it ourselves, but we pay a plumber to go do it. We don't charge them for it. But there are times where you got to step up to the plate and do that too.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a great question coming in at the same time we're talking about this. Are you subtracting out OPEX, CAPEX, reserves, or do you not build it in for rent to own?
So we do not do the maintenance, the repairs, the utilities with rent to own. But once again, when we're buying these turnkey houses that are in beautiful houses and beautiful neighborhoods, and if the sink faucet starts to leak, they don't call Joe and Jen. They go call a plumber. Now, however, when somebody gives you a large non-refundable option deposit to move into the house, $5,000, $10,000, save that into a separate account. Keep the rest of it for yourself. So if somebody gives me 20 grand to move in, I might put 5,000 into a special account just for the rainy day stuff that happens. And if you want to put more, do it.
Shout out to David Richter, Profit First, Real Estate Investing. If you don't have some separate reserve accounts for that, then you need to start, because you want to do the right thing and you want to have the money just in case. You never want to be running like on E with all properties like that.
Right.
But we don't have that monthly worry of, oh, we've got to go put in a new chimney or a brand new roof, or renovate the kitchen because that needs new appliances. So there are some certain pros, but I think it's really important to have reserves. Like you're a business, you need to have reserves.
Yeah, and this is why, once again, I think it's important to have it set up. But once again, as far as management goes and things like that, you don't need that. We don't use that.
Mm-mm.
So I think that's the key. So even fast forward to the one deal that we're trying to write up today, that was with Fort Pierce. Fort Pierce. So I'll give you another example.
Which is a city in Florida, here, not down here.
For my Florida peeps, this is the east coast of Florida. Great area, great property. And the woman is moving to Georgia. She has a mortgage. And so she's agreed to doing terms with $100 down. If we just take over her payments. And when you do that, the loan stays in the seller's name, but we could still buy the house. And this was a strategy that we didn't know it even existed until 2016, 17. And I didn't know that you can do that. And the reason why this one is so great, this one really cash flows. However, there's some fun she took out of it. So the property rents for about $2,200, $2,300. It's a single family home. Her payment all in was like $1,300 a month. So I'm like, yay, home run, right? You can make $900. She's like, well, I put on new hurricane windows and I have a payment of like $350 a month. I said, okay. And then she's like, and I put in a new air conditioning system for another $100 a month. So her true payment is like $1,750 per month, all in with taxes, insurance, the whole thing. And it could still rent for $2,200 to $2,300 a month. This house is turnkey. Now the roof was only a few years old. It's got a new windows all the way around. It's got a new AC system in it. So when I'm buying a house like that with $100 down, I factor in, I'm guessing on that property, $6,000 in closing costs. I'm guessing an insurance policy, $4,000 probably.
I wonder if the insurance, I'd have to ask, if they put the hurricane windows on, does that make a difference in your insurance? I would wonder.
I mean, this is Florida. It's a Wild West down here. I hope it does. Maybe it does. But that's going to be there. So you think $100 down, well, between taxes, the homeowner's insurance policy, some closing costs, you're $10,000, right? Pretty quickly. We like to sock away 3 months of payments at $1,750, right? So let's just say there's another $15,000, $16,000 plus some utilities while we're looking for our right renter. So in a $100 down deal, you might need $16,000, $17,000 down or total to buy that deal. However, this is why we love rent to own and how we get supercharged what we call our ROI, return on investment, right? Because if I have to come up with $17,000 to buy that deal total, but my renter moves in and gives me $25,000 plus first month's rent at $2,200, $2,300, and my payment is $1,750. Now we just got paid to buy that deal. And if we could cash flow $400 or $500 a month on average, if not more, and then our renter, this lady gave us a deal on it because right now Zillow shows her house at $268,000, and she's like, I just want $200,000 for it. because some of the stuff.
What are the houses selling in the area?
270s, 260s. But she's like, I'm already moving. I'm gone. So like, get ready to start doing this deal. Like, I want to close. Like, giddy up. So once again, this is how you find these deals, guys. So turnkey house, it's the speed and convenience that we can offer, because in some parts of the country right now, houses are selling quickly. Other pockets, they're sitting on the market for 60 days, 90 days before they find a seller. She doesn't have time like that. She's already planning on moving. She's got the new place picked out. She can't swing 2 payments, doesn't want to mess around.
I haven't even looked at the property yet.
It's cute.
Yeah.
She just bought it. I think she bought it like 3 years ago.
Oh.
Great property, great neighborhood. So when you're finding these creative finance deals, what you're trying to do is find out what is the seller's want. So what was the first person's want? I inherited grandpa's home. I don't want a million people walking through. I want a quick sale. I don't want a lowball offer, and I want my price. We got great terms, paid his price. Steve walks away. We all felt great on that deal. The people I just talked to a minute ago, right? Mr. and Mrs. divorced after 19 years. These two just need to get this thing settled and done. I feel like I'm a marriage counselor, mission accomplished. And then we have this one here where she's moving out of state. It's a turnkey property, and she's like, I'm gone. Please start taking over my payments and let's get this thing closed.
Yeah. Well, I think that they were all motivated was the key factor there, but motivated by different reasons. And I love that. I think it's, and it's literally Facebook, obviously being our number one favorite way of sourcing deals and finding leads, AKA talking to people about wanting to sell their house. So definitely works no matter what way you are putting things out there.
Yeah. And so here's a great question that comes up. Are you ever do wholetailing?
Wholetailing. So let's explain what wholetailing might be for our listeners or viewers who might be new to real estate investing.
So wholetailing is a really fun thing to do. Yes, we do them. And I enjoy doing them. So this is where you find a property where the seller will only take cash, right? And sometimes they'll take terms, but they're willing to give you at a big discount, right? And the house isn't perfect. And a lot of times what we do on these properties is we can buy them, we just close on them, we clean them up, and then we put them back on the market, and then we resell them. So you're getting it almost at a wholesale price, and then you're putting it on the market to retail it. Now, sometimes we've done this, like our house that we did in St. Pete, where we bought it, it was a complete rehab, but the seller needed the cash. So we did that deal, but all we did is we spent $650 for people to go just do a clean out, and we put it right on the market within like 2 weeks later, but we cleaned it. We took all of the stuff out, and that made a huge difference, put in the market, and we retailed it and did good on that deal.
You're talking about Pensacola. I was like, wait.
No, we're doing work to that one. That's a different one. But I also think about the one we did in Connecticut.
Yep.
That's a deal that we bought where we got a great discount, but we bought that one on terms. So we didn't have to come up to the table with more than, closing costs, although she had some back payments we had to get right. We did do some light renovations, and we retailed that one too. So that's what they kind of call like when you're buying it with creative finance and then you retail it. Both of those work great. And actually the one deal that we're going to do, hopefully I'm going to talk to Marlene that we're going to want to do that too, doing a creative flip where we buy it. Now her house was built in 2006. It's a nice property. It's right down the road from us, close to all the best beaches in Florida. And she wants to get this thing gone. It's been sitting on the market. It does need a roof, although it doesn't leak.
Florida law.
Florida rules, right? 18-year-old roof got to be replaced. And I'm not picking on anybody's grandma, but it does have grandma colors on the inside. I'm sure your grandmas all have great taste, but to get that more modern look, that's what we're going to go for. So we're going to paint the inside of it and put a new roof on, and then go back to retail with it. So,
and that's why we love the playbook that we call it, because you get to pick and choose what play you want to run. They came up in the support call today. One of our girls up in Buffalo, they have a house that they're trying to decide, do they just want to wholesale it to somebody else and just make a little bit of money, or do they want to clean it up? There's some, I think, cat urine or something that, stinking up the carpets a little bit, and you're going to need fresh paint and floors. So kind of how much work do you want to put into it? Because you have the options too. And that's where we kind of go back and forth sometimes is, do we just, wholesale, let somebody else make more, but do more? Or do you want to take it down yourself and get the work done? But I'm very proud of her because she's, learning to delegate. They're not going to be swinging the hammer this time. So
Are they going to take down the deal or wholesale?
They're trying to figure out if they're going to delegate and wholesale or just wholesale.
I mean, if you could wholesale it and not have to come up with the cash and capital to close on it and all of those things, and if you could get a smaller check in 3 to 4 weeks versus a bigger check in 3 to 4 months, sometimes it's much better just to take that smaller check, pass on that great deal to somebody else who will love you for that deal too, and hopefully they can make a bunch of money on it. And in that same amount of time, you found another deal or 2 deals, and you're getting more momentum building that business part of it.
But it was such a beautiful conversation because, as your investing journey continues, you might have started swinging the hammer. You did not. I mean, maybe when you were little, but because you had a full-time job, luckily you never swung the hammer and you just physically couldn't. But to get you out of some of the other roles because you truly enjoy them, it's just kind of funny, the journey that one takes in the entrepreneurial real estate investing side.
Well, I had some background knowledge to it. They say when you grow up, you're going to see a lot of role models. And I had role models, and I watched my parents try to be landlords and do everything wrong. So I learned at a young age, don't do all of those things, or actually any of them, because I learned a lot.
Right.
Okay. And I learned that when you're swinging that hammer and you're doing all of this work yourself all of the time, what that does to your body over a long history of doing that, I've seen what it does to these people, and it's never great. Right? They all have aches and pains and things like that. So I knew right off the bat, surround yourself with great, talented people, pay them well, make sure you still get a good deal. You could trust them. They're going to do great work. And that alone brings a lot of value. And then I could spend my time, rather than doing that, I could spend my time on more things, working on the business, growing that, getting more leads, looking for my next deal, and building momentum. And luckily for me, I learned at a young age because I used to be the one doing all the work. And that's
what I figured.
I used to be the one come home stinking and dirty and nasty and covered in just gunk. And it was just never great.
Yeah.
So
definitely delegate what you can. We have Caleb over here on Instagram. He says he could totally wholesale the deal, and him and his partner are buying in Houston, but they're going to keep it as an MTR. So again, choosing your play and definitely.
Well, that's the whole fun of it.
Yeah.
This is, guys, you're running
Congrats.
a business, and that's exciting. You find a different way to run with it, and it's just good to know the different ways you can do. And the more ways, once you buy a property, the more different ways you can to move that property, to find a way to make money on it, the more opportunities it finds more deals for you. So the fact that you can do that and have a midterm rental, and it's a profitable way to do it, and you have that tool in your tool belt, that's what makes you the full-fledged investor. And that's what we're looking for, right? That's what I'm looking for myself. How do I be the best investor I can? How can I help in most of these situations? Now, I stay focused in my lane and try not to get, that shiny object syndrome where
so easy to do.
I want to now do mobile home parks, and now I want to do self-storage, or now I want to build skyscrapers, right? Sure, all of them work.
I think you might be building skyscrapers, the mountain that you talk about.
Hey, listen, I want to keep focus on this because I really think the best way to do this, what we've learned from some of the best coaches in Mount Rushmore of real estate investing, who've been doing this since the 1980s, many of them, and they all say buy without using banks, without using your credit, and a little cash, and you can scale to buying as many properties as you want. It's called non-recourse debt. I looked at what so many people got wiped out in 2008, and I'm not saying that's happening now or anytime soon, but we learned from these past experiences from other people. And I've watched one of my coaches, he said he had $50 million out on deals doing these development projects all over the country. And then in 08 happened, and they all said, oh, sorry, we're not lending you another dollar on any one of your projects. And he's like, well, I can't complete them if you're not giving me the rest of my money. And the banks are all like, sorry. And had to go. I mean, it was rough for a lot of people. So they got hit. So non-recourse debt, learn how to buy with this way, and you're going to save yourself and scale your business the right way. So we got some questions here.
I'm going to go back to Omar's here. How do you go about getting seller finance deals that need repairs? How do you go about to get funds to do the repairs?
So, Omar, that's a great question. How do we go about getting sellers finance deals that need repairs? So, we do is we find sellers who have properties that need work. More importantly, we do Facebook marketing. We've came up with a strategy how to get leads for free by using Facebook, guys. And if you don't already know that, you need to listen to a different episode. But however you're getting that lead, Omar, if you're talking with the seller, the property does need some work. The one thing we always do is we always offer or ask the seller, would you be open to terms on a fixer upper, on a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood? Every lead that comes in, we always want to know, would you be open to terms? And there are some situations where a seller has a fixer upper, but they don't need the money right now. Maybe it's a second home or a home they inherited it, right? And they're opening to sell you the property with terms, with very little to no money down, but maybe they don't want to wait 20, 30 years for a payday. Maybe they say, listen, if you could, buy the house, do the renovations, put it on the market and get me cashed out in 6, 7, 8 months and I get all my money then, a lot of times they'll be open to doing that, right? They'll be open to doing that because you're taking this burden off their hands. You're going to spend time rehabbing, remodeling, putting it on the market and selling it. Mm-hmm. So now what happens, Omar, if maybe you're not a contractor, because I'm not, maybe you don't have the money to do it. Well, can you find somebody that you could partner up with on that deal who maybe is a contractor? Maybe who's a contractor who you could give extra money to if they're willing to do all of the work and not get paid until the property's sold, or they partner up with you on the deal and you bring in the deal, they bring in all of the funds for doing the repairs. You guys partner up on the deal together and do that. You could borrow the money from somebody just to be able to pay them back with some interest and really get into these deals with very little to absolutely no money, and get into many of these fix and flips. So if you don't have access to money, find people who do. I mean, there's people in all of these Facebook groups. There's probably people listening to this podcast right now where if y'all could partner up and make a whole bunch of money and somebody had to come to the table with 20, 30, 40 grand and you could help them double that money in a short amount of time because you found the most amazing deal. And I'll promise you, if you find the most amazing deal, you'll have no hard time finding the people who will help make that money together.
Yeah, that's definitely a conversation for another episode. But there's so many ways out there to use OPM, other people's money. And we got some fun guests coming on soon.
We got some real good ones coming soon, y'all. So you're going to want to stay tuned to these podcasts that we're doing every Tuesday live. But listen to the recordings too, because we put them on all the podcast channels, Spotify, Apple, it's all on there, our YouTube channel. So if you're already not liked and subscribed, please do that because there's a ton of great stuff on there too. But we're going to really dive into how to do these deals, right? And I know so many times it's like, well, how do I find money, right? And we got some money people coming. So don't you worry about that. But that's a great question. I see that a lot. And yeah, there's many times where a seller will float those. If it's a short term and they're going to get their money back, they would be open to that.
Yeah. Keep the questions coming. We have more time here to chat a little bit. Caleb says he loves this. He's doing some of these strategies now. So keep up the good work.
So Evelyn says she's got a deal. Hey, Evelyn, shoot me a DM and we can take a look at that deal. She says she's got a potential. Evelyn, I'm sorry. Yeah, send it over. I'd love to take a look.
Yeah. You gonna throw your phone number out again?
Well, now I've updated it, but yeah, I put it on my Facebook page because everybody's like, what's the number? I'm like, just put it up there. So 585-207-2240. So if you've got a question, you could just text me right there too.
Yeah.
And we could chat about it. So if you've got a seller, maybe you're talking to, and they're like, hey, this might work for me, and you have a deal, this is why I put my phone number out there. How many times we found deals where they didn't think there was, and how many times other investors.
Yeah, I've spotted a deal when other people said it wasn't.
So do you want to get into that real quick? Because maybe somebody's already working on one.
Well, yeah, especially if you are a wholesaler or you are talking to a seller who just needs too much money because that's what their house is actually worth, and you can't give them a lowball offer, or that's just not working that way. Is there a high level of motivation? Could it potentially cash flow, and would they be open to a delayed cash sale for full price? So meaning, can they just take a little bit of time to get paid, like we've been talking about here? And it's just the simple questions, and it's nothing to be scared of. But if you're already sourcing leads and you're talking to a lot of people, then it's worth at least asking them, because, like we were talking about the couple that is ready to part ways versus, somebody that has a house that she just put all new hurricane windows in. Like there's a lot of different things going on. And so you just need to get to the root of the problem and ask the questions. But, it's not that you're not intelligent by any means. You spent so much time learning how to do wholesaling, but creative, it takes time to really wrap your head around it. And for me, I needed to be around the mentors holding my hand, and then you re-explaining it to me several times until we were actually like doing it front to back and all around to really grasp the whole concept of it, because there's so many layers to a creative deal.
Well, there's so many different ways to do it. So like wholesaling or cash offers, I focus on one thing, cash. Mm-hmm. Right. And if the cash price works or if it doesn't work, if it does work, I make the deal. If it doesn't work, I don't. Right. With creative finance, there's so many times where this is what the shift for me was. What about with all these sellers who want way too much money for their property?
Right.
Does anybody come into us, talk to a seller where they just wanted way too much money for your property? Like that happens all of the time. So when I have these sellers, and maybe too much is retail. Sometimes it could be even over retail. But however, sometimes these sellers are in situations. Sometimes they're still willing to give you a discount. So I think the one funny thing was we're hosting our meetup tonight. Okay, in Florida.
Come on
down. But I will tell you, at our last meetup, Jen and I were on stage. We were talking. One of the gentlemen in the audience is like, well, so why would I do that with my property that I have? And one of our friends turned to him. He's like, well, because you're not a motivated seller, right? Because why would I do that? Well, you're not a motivated seller. So the real key that I will tell you is finding motivated sellers. It's a lead thing, right? So you got to find people who are in these situations that we could solve. Many of them we can't. Mm-hmm. There's many people who their best option maybe is to list their house and put it on the market and sell it. But there's so many folks who just for some reason don't. And I'm going to go over a tip that was working well. We started off in upstate New York doing this there, which is a tough state. I will tell you the number one reason people, we were asking like, why do you want to sell? They would all say, I want to move out of New York State and we're moving down south because of the taxes, the weather, the gray skies, the cold, whatever it was. So many of our sellers in New York State were moving down south. And I can't tell you how many deals that we bought that way, right? A ton. So when we're in Florida, they're moving you could not believe people.
All those people that move now want to move back.
They call them halfbacks or halfways, where you move from like New York down to Florida. And then you're like, okay, well, maybe not Florida, but how's like North Carolina? And they move like halfway back.
That's a true tip right there. Like, unless you are like talking to the amount of volume of people, like you really don't know why or how, or like the number of people that have moved recently. Like for us, we're like, what is it about the 2-year mark? We keep seeing houses people bought in 2022 and now they're trying to sell in 2024. And where we live, it's like they're not even breaking even at this point. Some of them now they're losing money, especially if they're paying the closing costs, commissions, beauty fees, all that.
I see a ton of them. So where we are in South Florida right now, people who bought a house 2 years ago, like I'm looking at one right now online. They bought it for $790. They paid over asking for it and bought it for $790. 2 years later, it's on the market for $795. It's been sitting on the market. They have like hardly any views, any saves, and it's just sitting there at that price. Mm-hmm. At any other thing, they're under that, they're taking a loss. Minus commissions and closing costs, they're already going to be taking a loss. So, and it's all over the country, a little bit different. However, if they bought it 2 years ago, they have a 2.65 interest rate, and they have a super low payment, there's many times where we could help save the day, right? And not take that big, huge loss. And especially if you're going to give me enough time to where if the market gets a little soft, but then it comes back, because I think, in Florida, it might do that. It's going to soften up a little bit because of how hot, but it will come back. This is Florida and it always does.
And that's where term length comes really into play. So today, that was another question that came up. Like, if the term is only 2 years, would you do the deal? And you just got to really think about your exit strategy. I mean, for us, we don't want to put anything on that timeline because that's really too short of a time to get a rent-to-own buyer qualified, to really like price that house out accordingly and to really be able to.
I think it's too soon. I mean, unless I'm going to do the fix and flip like we talked about.
Right. That's entirely different.
And I could do that in under 2 years. But if it's not, you're just going to put too much pressure on yourself and too much pressure on your renters to buy it. And in that time frame, and then if you can't deliver, you could renew it if they want to or get the house back. But that's a nightmare. And you don't want to put yourself in that situation if the market softens up a little bit. So the key to what we're looking for are these deals that we could get into that have low rates and good terms, that have a long-term length to them. So if the market does go a little bit down and it goes back up, whatever that is, but in the meanwhile, the whole time we're going to be cash flowing. And that's the key to success. So I can't tell you how many deals I look at where somebody might be sharing one of these deals. Like, hey, does anybody want to buy this deal? The seller wants, total cost to buy is 80 grand. And then I look at the numbers and you're losing money to turn it into a rental. And there's just so many deals out there where maybe they didn't know how to analyze it the right way. So I'm going to give you some tips right now, guys. Go generate leads. You got to get your lead machine up. Right on our website, Creative Finance Playbook, it's right on there. You could go download and get our exact system that we're doing to generate tons of leads of off-market sellers for free without spending any money. Okay. Then number 2, get our script. It's right on there. This is the same script that our team is using, the same script that our clients are using to get these leads. Now we're asking them some questions, guys. Get yourself all of this stuff. Get yourself in front of some sellers. Start having the conversations. And this is what it is. You got to crank up your lead machine, because I'm going to do a case study. So if anybody wants to see case study, write case study down below. Okay.
Oh boy.
And if I get enough of these, I want to see case study. If I see enough, I'm going to. And what we're going to do is a case study of exactly, once again, how we're posting these into groups, how we're getting leads. We could even see the results of what it's came. So if you want to see case study, write that down below in the comments. We'll do a live case study of how to generate leads. And then here are the questions we ask them and why we ask them this way. Once we do this, guys, I could generate 10, 20, 30 leads in a day. We've had many.
You can generate way more than that.
We've had many do way more than that. I know I'm not trying to give them all the sauce, right? No, I am. You could get hundreds. We've had our record.
Depends. Well, you want to warm your Facebook up first, and we'll go into that. But yeah, you could definitely have more leads than you know what to do with, and that's the name of the game. Is like I can't even help all these people because there's so many leads, and that's really, really awesome.
I see everybody's dropping case studies, so we got to have it now. So you're good.
Right.
We're gonna do
Kelly,
it.
take notes here. We got a schedule. I'll put it on the calendar here with Philippe.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a case study of how to generate the leads, the questions that we're going to ask.
Yeah, hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks, CEO.
Thank you. Here's the deal, guys. Our record. I want to find somebody here to break the record that we currently have. We had one of our clients do a post into one group, and she got 1,100 comments. Got a deal out of it and had like 50, 60 like solid follow-ups. And then she came back to us and said, Joe, Jen, I feel bad. There's no way I can keep up with all of these leads. I work full-time. I can never get through to all of them. So I want to make sure, guys, we give you all those leads, because I am telling you, there's more sellers all around the country that need our help, and we can't get to them all. We're not even close. So this is what we just tell you what to do, because you know what? You need to learn how to have these conversations.
What if they're nervous to post on Facebook?
Do it anyways. Do it anyways. So Facebook, if you're on there just surfing, it's just costing you money. Facebook is a tool to make millions of dollars, and it doesn't cost you anything to have a Facebook account. And between the network of people that you're going to meet on there and how to reach out and have sellers reach out to you with off-market properties, you can legitimately make millions of dollars on Facebook for free. That's why it's my favorite platform. And before, Jen made my Facebook page, so I wasn't a social media person, but Jen was sick of having on her Facebook.
My invisible boyfriend.
Her invisible boyfriend, then fiance, then husband. So that's why she made me mine. And then after, I didn't have the app on my phone. I was not a social media person until I saw the potential, because she showed me. And then I was like, oh my gosh. And then that's when everything really started taking off. So I see a ton of case studies. Once again, if you want to see the case study, how to do this, write it down below. Case study. And we'll get you guys an invitation to that.
Lacey said she's going to call you at 2 a.m. and say case study.
Yay!
Well, he might call you back at 5, just so you know.
Yeah, if anybody ever calls me late, I call you back early. Just a heads up. So, but yeah, that's the case, guys. So we want to be able to show you how to do this. And sometimes we might find a deal together, right? You might come and say, Joe, I got a deal. Let's partner up on this. We can make a bunch of money together, guys. And that is the gift, learning how to get in front of sellers, because this business, as complicated as some of these gurus want to make it sound, it's not. do two things: generate leads, talk to people. And if you can help solve their problems, everybody can make a bunch of money.
I mean, I wish I could say it was harder than that. There's little things you need to know, but it's really like that's the hardest part is generating leads, because then you need to talk to people and you just got to talk to them.
Well,
and then the hard part's in your head. Like you think you don't know what to say. Well, use the script. And then you think you don't have the right XYZ, but then you find the right people and you'll get it.
I mean, our deal analyzing calculator, if you're not in our Creative Finance Playbook Facebook group,
you're just giving it all out.
In our Facebook group, guys, we have our deal analyzing calculator. So if you have a seller say yes to terms, fill in all that information on that deal analyzing calculator, and it's going to tell you how great your deal is, or it's going to tell you it's a terrible deal and you should run. So if you're not already in our Facebook group, make sure you join that. No cost to get in there, but there's a ton of good stuff in there, and I will tell you, this is the name of the game to find these deals, guys. What if I'm nervous? Do it anyways. Well, you know what? It's the same thing that I think when our kids learn how to ride their bike.
Yeah, we're all nervous at some point about something. I mean,
just gotta hop on.
You were nervous to ask me to marry you. You didn't even eat your steak that night.
I left dessert. I ordered dessert to go and left it there because I wasn't even thinking about it. Yeah, so
amazing things are on the other side of your comfort zone. So that's where all the books come into play and the mindset piece. But just do it. Take the messy, massive action and really think about the people that you're helping versus stop making it about yourself. Mm-hmm. That's really what it comes down to.
And I will tell you, the key to success is you just nailed it, is take that messy, massive action. I'm not putting anybody's name on the streets, but one of our clients has 17 deals on our contract right now, and they just started with us in October. Okay. Talking about action, every time I see them, she's always like, yeah, my mouth is tired from talking all of the time on the phone, but she's got 17 deals on her contract, guys. Mm-hmm. So if I could give you any advice, just find that little bit of a process that works. Mm-hmm. Get yourself in front of some leads, get the right questions, pick up the phone, talk to the good ones, make offers, make deals. And then next thing you know, the sky's the limit.
Yep.
So bam.
Yeah, so our Facebook group, again, has that calculator. It's in there totally for you guys to use. So check us out, Creative Finance Playbook with Jenn and Joe.
How do they get a hold of you? You guys, we're going to do a whole Instagram. You need to be, if you're not already following her, especially on Instagram, how do they find you there?
Well, I'm on Instagram. It's just my name, Jenn Delafave.
She puts out so much great stuff, guys.
I like Instagram. It's my fun little, an investor corner. I feel like all my sellers, all my tenant buyers are on Facebook, and I post there too, but I've always connected with some really awesome people on Instagram. So shout out to those of you who are watching over there. And yeah, definitely check us out, guys. If you want to connect more, just head over to our website, creativefinanceplaybook.com. There's an option to even hop on a call with us if you just want to chat and hear more about how we're working things, how you might be able to work with us. Definitely love to chat. And yeah, my Instagram, it's me. I don't have anybody else over there. So if you're chatting with someone in the DM, it is me. It is not a virtual assistant or anyone else.
Wow, I actually get to talk to you.
You, on the other hand, you might have a little help in yours. You're never on it. But you give out your cell phone. So
you got my cell phone, guys, once again. So if you need any help or you want to learn how you can do this too, reach out. Love to connect. 585-207-2240.
There you go, guys. So next week, we do not have a podcast recording. So take the time to go subscribe to Apple or Spotify and catch up on some of our podcasts. We've been doing this for almost 2 years. So all the recordings are there for you. We'll have some new ones being uploaded too. We've been working on something on the side. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button and come again in 2 weeks where we have some awesome stuff in store.
Yay. All right. Well, you guys have a wonderful Tuesday. Guys, go make it happen. Go get some action. And we'll see you some deals.
Do
see
some
you guys.
deals. Bye.